Hello and welcome to the first agenda of the year with me, Graham Hughes, and Phil Morehouse. How you doing, Phil?
Afternoon. Much better than Rishi Sunak. Yes.
It's the first agenda of the year, and we've already got a lot to talk about, which is remarkable considering that Parliament's not even sitting this week.
But the election campaign has basically begun. It's kicked off now.
Did you see the footage of Rishi Sunak getting ousted from? Yep. Well, he was leaving a cafe in Southport an hour ago. In Stockport, and
up north.
He was
near you.
Cheered. Southport's near me as well. It's easy to get those two things mixed up.
Well, that's near Wales, though, surely.
No, it's north of Liverpool. It's actually further from Wales.
Southport.
Southport is
near
Wales.
North
of Liverpool.
All right, I'll take your word for it. You're better job.
It's true. It's like West Ham is in the east of London. Southgate is in the north of London. Makes no sense, but there you go. Anyway, Stockport. He was leaving a cafe, and there were people shouting "Resign."
Yeah. Well, I was saying, the thing is, that can happen to anyone, any politician. Obviously, politics is divisive. Anything can happen like that. I mean, Starmer got heckled in Glasgow, for example. Who was it? It was an organised group of the hard left, right? So it can happen. The thing is, though, with that fella booing him and telling him to resign, you don't actually know who it is. You've got no idea. It could be someone on the left. It could be someone on the right. It could be a committed Conservative voter. It could be a moderate Conservative voter. It could be a far-right Conservative voter. You've no idea. Rishi Sunak has managed to piss off everyone across the entire political spectrum.
He has
could be anyone, no idea. But, they've certainly... Labour have got off to the better start this week in terms of the campaign, but they've also got an easier campaign. I'm just going to show this. This is absolutely correct. This is what the Conservatives have got to work with. This picture tells you everything. I'm going to analyse this picture. This is. I know it's a Lee Anderson death stare, but I want to analyse the body language of all four of these people. Right, I've only just seen this image.
Oh my god! I've only just realised that Rishi Sunak is actually in that picture. I thought it was a school kid.
No, so let's start with Rishi Sunak. Right, let's look at what this picture is showing. Right, because I don't know anything. I've just seen this picture posted on Twitter. So Rishi Sunak,
looks like a school kid.
Is a look of expectation. That is the look you give when the chairman of the board is about to speak. So you look, I'm interested. That is a look of anticipation that he's interested in what this kid's about to say.
Why is he dressed as a school child, Phil?
I don't know. But I mean, he's got the same pencil. He's doing the same work. You notice Lee Anderson isn't doing this. I
thought it was a school child. But I looked at the picture and I thought that's a school kid. And then I looked at it a bit closer and I was like,
pretending to do the same work as the other kids. Lee Anderson's having none of it. Now, if you look at Lee Anderson, that death stare there, that is also a look of anticipation, but it's a very different look. That is not a look of, I'm interested in what you've got to say. He's the one who's asked the question. I bet you anything, he's asked that kid a question. And that is a look of, listen, son, there's a right answer and a wrong answer to this question. You're not going to give me the wrong answer, are you? That is a look of, you don't want to mess with me, son. And then, before I come to the kid himself, look at the girl between them. So Rishi Sunak is looking expectantly at this kid. Lee Anderson is looking expectantly at this kid. That little girl's not. She's got her head down. I'm not part of this. I'm not getting involved in this. She's not at all interested in this. And then you look at the kid himself. His head's down as well. Now, he's just been asked a question by the Prime Minister and some old fart, right, at a school. He's not got his head up. I've been asked a question. I'm going to share with you the wisdom of my, years. No. His head's down as well. He's thinking, oh shit, how do I get out of this? That picture. Can you imagine as well, finding out that your kid was at that school where they visited? I mean, look at that look from Lee Anderson.
Lee Anderson looks like what's his name, BJ Blazkowicz from Wolfenstein.
But look at again, the more you look at the picture, the more you just see, what have they got to work with here? Because you can see above Rishi Sunak's head, there's a picture of Rishi Sunak and Lee Anderson on the wall. So they were obviously doing this thing about, there's going to be these senior politicians coming here. So they'll all brief the kids because their pictures are already up on the wall. And, and that kid is not wanting to get him. Neither of those kids wants to get involved in this. Rishi Sunak is pretending to do some work with the kids. Lee Anderson is absolutely not. You know, it just, the more you look at it, the photo staged.
Is this
all
not
photos
AI?
are staged. No.
Is this not AI? Because I AI'd that
won't be,
picture of
Yeah, but-
Sunak for our thumbnail. So he
Yeah,
looks
but that's
like...
even-
I
I mean,
like
you
Arnie
criticised
Schwarzenegger.
Grand Moff Tarkin in Rogue One. I mean, yours was like, I actually said it looks like Arnie in Kindergarten Cop.
It did actually take 5 seconds on Photoshop AI. I wasn't really perfecting that one, but you know.
But anyway, but in terms, so that's just one picture from this week. There is another one. In fact, there's a
That's
few.
genuine. That's not AI generated to make Rishi Sunak look like a school child.
It doesn't look AI generated to me. But then there's this one. Now, there's a few pictures here, but the main one here. So there's Rishi Sunak, again, looking interested in what someone has to say. They've got a microphone there, so I'm guessing it's a journalist. The fella to the side of him, do you know who that is? Do you recognize the person next to him?
No.
You may not. That's Ben Bradley.
Guy? Oh.
This is Rishi Sunak in Mansfield, right? That fella sat next to him, Ben Bradley, is the Conservative MP for Mansfield. What does that look tell you? That is not a look of a man who's thinking, "Oh, I'm here with the person who's going to help me win my seat in the election." That is not what that looks like.
He's trying to figure out a way to crawl out of his own skin.
Well, to me, that look is, can you stop talking? Don't answer this question. Don't say anything. I'm losing votes every time you breathe. Will you stop?
What's with the Rishi's raw deals on the picture?
So this is part of... So I've just gone through a couple of the Conservatives' attempts at campaigning. This is one of Labour's attempts. So they've been sending round this tax calculator. That I haven't had a go with it yet, but it's supposed to tell you how much worse off you are under the Conservatives.
Yeah.
So these are actual Labour ads, but I want to just point out where they are. So the first one is on the Conservative Home website. So Labour are basically paying for... So there's Conservatives. If the Conservative Home website is basically the Conservatives' version of Labour List, right? It's like it supports the Conservative Party. It's for Conservative members, really. So they're advertising Labour's, and you can click on it as well. Find out how much tax you'll be paying. So it's got because when I first saw it on someone posted this image again on Twitter, and I thought, why would the Tories post an image with Rishi Sunak with the sparkle thing? Because that's like the sign of a con dealer, isn't it? Yeah. Like a used car dealer, Honest Eddie. And then you realise it's the Labour ad.
So this is on because this is on. So Labour List, by the way, because Derek Draper just died. Did you hear that? He was the founder of Labour List.
No, I hadn't actually.
Labour lobbyist. He died of complications following COVID-19. He's not been well since I think like March 2020.
Oh, hang on, was this in the Mirror? I may have seen something.
No, it just happened today. It was.
Yeah, I think I saw it mentioned in the Mirror. Now that you say it. And I hadn't actually read that yet. I just saw
it's on the news bulletin at 12.
Right.
And I mean, that's quite sad. But I mean, he was one of the founders of Labour List. But yeah, I can't believe this is on the Tory Party website.
But the thing is, if I move my head, you can see
top trolling, as Aaron says in the chat.
I mean, this is today's, and this shows you their lead story as well. Cutting inheritance tax over income tax would be an own goal for Sunak and Hunt. So it's not even like their own contents praising him. So basically, Labour are running this because the Tories are trying to say, "Oh, Labour are good at cush you loads of taxes and stuff like this." Labour are going, "Oh yeah, right, well, a good one." So they're putting this out, including this tax calculator you can click on and tell you how much worse off you go. But the image in the bottom left, it's exactly the same ad. Now this is on what looks like a campaign office, but it is in Wellingborough. Christopher Hope tweeted this, who is like a Tory shill for the Telegraph and GB News. This is Wellingborough. This is where the next by-election is going to be.
Oh.
Whereas he also posted, I haven't put it up here, but he also posted a picture of the Conservative constituency office, which obviously has Peter Bone's name on it. That is very much closed for business. That's not open. But yeah, in Wellingborough, anyone goes past here, then this is what they're getting. And they'll presumably be getting this on the campaign leaflets as well, going through the doors. So
are you saying that's actually real? No, it's not real, is it?
Yeah.
They've actually done that as a real shop front.
Well, it's on their campaign. It looks like a campaign office if you look through the door. So it's presumably... I mean, I imagine they're going to take that down when they win and put up all the Labour branding stuff.
So, sorry, you're saying that is Pete,
according to Christopher Hope, I haven't been to Wellingborough to see it myself.
That's
according
Bones'
to a journalist.
office, and Labour have taken it over and put those signs.
Well, Labour are going to need an office when they win, aren't they? So at the moment they'll be using it as a campaign office, and then presumably it will become a constituency office.
Oh wow! I thought that was just photoshopped. I didn't realise that was actually a real place.
Well, again, I'm not like, it looks like it could be real, and it's not my. I don't see why a conservative client journalist would promote this if it were not true.
Yeah.
So
brilliant.
Yeah, it's. But I mean, that look of Ben Bradley's. I mean, you just look. I mean, these photos with Rishi Sunak, they're just absolutely golden. Like, I don't see. Sometimes you'll obviously photographers are snapping everything, and sometimes they'll catch you in resting bitch face, and you'll go, "Oh, they don't look very happy," and they've just caught you in a neutral expression. That's not a neutral expression. His jaw's clenched. I don't know what that is. I can't actually imagine you could ever get a photo like that of an MP next to their party leader, even if they don't really like them. That's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
So Rishi Sunak announced yesterday that he's looking at later in the year, but he left a door wide open for actually having a May
because it's a nonsense. That's why. Absolute nonsense.
Do you think they're going to still go with May?
So everyone's saying either it's going to be May or November. What I am saying is the Conservatives are trying to create the conditions for a May election, but they're also giving themselves the option. If whatever, I don't know what conditions they need to meet. There'll be presumably some polling conditions that need to be met. If they don't meet them, then they will go for like November, as everyone else is suggesting. So there'll be a load of people after March, because it was too late to call it for May the 2nd then, either going, A, I was right, or A, I was wrong. Whereas I sort of get to, it's almost like I'm hedging, but I'm really not. It's like, it's very obvious that they're trying to gun for May. It's really obvious that, like, even, I mean, I did my first video today on the standards controls coming in. So you've got a situation where there's going to be checks, standards checks, coming online for the end of April. So if they have the election on May the 2nd, standards checks come in. And then if it all goes to shit, Labour's mess to clear up because they'll be in power a few days later.
Yeah.
Whereas if we're to believe that they are actually planning on having the election in November, then what they're doing is they're going to have these standards checks come in. No one feels that we're ready for them. The systems are, they only published the plans for it 4 months ago. That's not enough time for people to get up to speed. They haven't published any of the details of exactly where the checks take place. It's all like fast and loose. The chances of it actually working well are zero. And Rishi Sunak's plan, we are led to believe, is to hold the election at peak chaos. So as trade ramps up over the last 4 months of the year, November is basically pretty much peak. And he's going to go to the polls at a time where if it goes badly wrong, and no one really knows what's going to happen with these standards checks. We know they're not applying full standards checks. We get that, but they are still applying standards checks. If it goes really badly wrong, they'll be committed at that point. If they don't have the election in May, they're completely committed. And you know, we could have shortages. We could have massive food inflation. And that's the time he's thinking of. Don't give me, no. I can believe that they're giving themselves the option. Because if it looks like they're on for if the polls stay as they are now in March, by the end of March, yes, I can see them going long, but only because they'll be praying for a miracle.
Well, yeah, they want
not because they think it'll be better in autumn. Okay, any journalist that says, "Oh, it's looking like it's going to be better in autumn," no, it's looking like it's going to be worse in autumn.
Well,
I mean, there's enough uncertainty that you might have a miracle.
Okay, so if we did, we would probably be looking at an October.
Well, a lot of people are suggesting November the 14th, so then it's after the presidential elections. But that, to me, that is again gambling, because the way I look at it, first of all, let's say Trump wins. That's what they'll be hoping for. I'm not sure aligning yourself with the orange one really helps with a lot of swing voters. But secondly, what if Biden wins? Then you're completely snookered. absolutely bollocks because there's lots of Conservative MPs openly attack Biden. So if they're going to, so then they'll be basically going to the electorate. Oh, the guy that we really hate and we cannot possibly work with has won the US presidential elections. All right, time to go to the polls.
Yeah.
Absolute nonsense.
But also, I mean, but a Trump win might give them a bit of a boost because
it would be better for them than a Biden win. Because then they will claim that they are the ones who can work with Trump and Labour can't. Yes, but again, this like Trump's so it's not he's so unpopular in this country, even amongst conservatives.
Yeah,
he's only popular amongst those sorts of the certain elements of the right.
Yeah, the far right, the fascists, the lunatics. Yeah. We've never had a general election in November.
I think apparently we haven't, but there has been one. I think Harold Wilson won an election once when it was at the same time as the presidential elections, I believe. I think there has been. It's just that we won't have experienced it.
I checked before we came on air with never.
All right, okay.
It would have been one of the October ones. There's been quite a few October ones.
All right, okay. Well, that'll be close enough.
But usually it's May or June. Because no one wants to open the door to you in the middle of winter.
Yeah, well, it's always basically May, give or take a month.
Yes.
So it's somewhere between April and June usually. December, they got away with December last time because, first of all, the opposition were in complete disarray. Plus, you could justify it to the public. Parliament was deadlocked. So it's reasonable under those conditions to say we should have an election. So they could totally justify it. They cannot justify it this time round.
I mean, the having election in the middle of December, that was the first time I think we've ever had a December election for obvious reasons. And to agree to go into that when you're behind in the polls. Not the smartest.
It's because they don't believe them. They didn't believe them. Anyone who wasn't within their clique, they thought had an ulterior motive. They didn't believe them.
Well, they just thought it would be... it would all be plain sailing. Don't worry. The polls are wrong, but the gambling odds are never wrong, are they, Phil?
The odds themselves will be because they're massaged by wanting people to bet on a wrong one. But the general, like the bookies, aren't going to give you really long odds on the likely outcome because they'll lose loads of money.
Right.
So yes, if there's going to be a very, very, very likely outcome, you will get very short odds. I mean, as soon as Rishi Sunak announces this Wellingborough by-election, presumably next week, I shall be immediately checking. No. I keep saying I'm not supposed to promote gambling, but it's not really gambling. Labour are going to win. So it'd be interesting to see what odds I get on Labour winning. I bet it's nothing.
What do you reckon it's going to be like?
I'll basically have to bet £1 million and I'll get a groat back.
There you go. Actually, no, there's been 2 general elections held in the month of December. Once in 2019 and once in 2010. Sorry, 2010. No, 1910. Sorry.
1910. That'd be an interesting one then, because that would. So I mean, that goes back. So there was an election in 1900. I don't know anything about the 1910 one, but I know about the 1900 and 1906 elections, because 1900 is when the Conservatives won a massive stonking majority based on culture wars, just like they did in 2019. And then in the following election in 1906, they took their biggest loss ever, and the Liberals swept to power because it apparently building a campaign on culture wars tends to go sour very quickly if you actually win that election.
Sorry, so that was the 1906.
1906, the Conservatives were absolutely battered. Because they'd won a huge majority of the election before, based on culture war. Their culture wars were sort of based on like imperialism at the time. And then it all went to shit, and the Liberals came in with a stonking win. Basically, 1900 and 1906 are a repeat of 2019 and what is probably going to be 2024.
Yeah.
Well, only at the time, Labour had only just come into being in 1900, so they weren't the main opposition. The Liberal Party were.
Big shout out to Brian in the chat there. Thank you very much for the super chat. It's come to this. Tory strategy for the general election. Let's all join hands and pray for a miracle.
Well, to be fair, that's their plan B. Their plan A is let's try and persuade people that Labour will be just as bad as us, only with higher taxes. That's their plan A. But if Plan A doesn't work, then yes, it's miracle time.
And Brad has written £5 super chat. Thank you very much, Brad. GB News crew will be trying a January 6th on Downing Street if they lose.
Can you imagine Darren Grimes trying to break into a kiddie's tuck shop, let alone Parliament?
Well, no, down Downing Street. I mean, they'll be trying to climb over the gate to Downing Street.
He couldn't. He's useless.
It's quite
Could you
clever,
imagine
actually.
Darren Grimes trying to pick a fight with anyone?
Yeah. Putting your
It's no wonder he ran away from Newcastle. He wouldn't. I can't believe he managed to grow up alive there.
He didn't. He was Durham. He's a Durham lad, not Newcastle.
Is he? I thought it was Newcastle.
Yeah, he's Durham.
Why does he support Newcastle?
Cummings. Because it's the closest big team, isn't it? It's like people who from Wales who support Man United. Or maybe
yeah, but like there's
not
people.
So much anymore.
When I was at university, my first year flat, there were 8 of us, and there was 1 Man City fan and 2 Man United fans. And the Man City fan was from Manchester, and the 2 Man United fans, one was from London and the other one was from Greece.
Yeah, we had that. We had the head of the Manchester United supporters club who was going mad about the Glaziers buying the club back in the day. He was from Surrey. Oliver, his name was. Were you in Owen Park? Where were you?
I was next door. I was in Oak House.
Oak House. I remember it well. I was in Whitworth Park, next to Murder Park. Literally, there was a murder in the park next to where I was a student in Manchester in 1997. Just before we got there. Of a student, actually. Yeah, because it's right by Moss Side. Great place to grow up. Anyway, Rachel, thank you very much for the super chat, just because. Thank you. And the trans flag there. Yes. Also, we've got Emma in there. Can we not organise a march demanding a general election?
We can.
The super chat. We can.
We know what will happen.
We
had like 1 million people marching for a people's vote on Brexit. It didn't happen. It would show the strength of feeling. It would. You would certainly have Labour frontbenchers attending that. Actually, would you? Maybe they've just got a moratorium on attending any sort of thing like that. But they would certainly support it. But yeah, it's anything that shows the strength of public feeling is useful. And it plays, I mean, Labour sent out, as soon as Rishi Sunak made that statement, they were sending, I had an email from them. Here it is. It says, Rishi Sunak just bottled a spring election. The unelected Prime Minister is hiding and telling the British public that we must wait to make our voices heard in a general election this year. So this is the line. And then they say, so he can squat in number 10 for longer. This is the line they'll be using on the public if he doesn't call the election at the end of March. But then they're also still saying we're not taking them at face value. We're still getting ready for May. Yeah. Because everyone looks at it and go, they're trying to. It's not that the Tories are determined there's going to be a May election. Otherwise, they wouldn't have needed to say that yesterday. Yeah. But they are trying because they know that autumn's going to be bad.
I like that attack line about him squatting in number 10. I really like that because it's true. I mean, he wasn't elected in it.
No, I don't go. I don't go for that because no one is. No prime minister's elected. No member of government is elected.
Yeah, I know, but the idea is that
but it works on it works on some people. So it's part of the reasonable rough and tumble of politics.
Yes. Yeah. Which I respond to, and I think a lot of people respond to it. They go, "Yeah, he is squatting in number 10. Get him out! Get him out! I didn't vote for him. No one voted for him, except for maybe some. Actually, no one voted for him.
People in Richmond voted for him, just like only people in Uxbridge and South Ruislip voted for Boris Johnson.
Do you think he's going to lose his seat? Because that'd be fun.
It's possible. It's not like there's some that are definitely going to lose their seats.
Richmond used to be.
It's still safe.
Neck of the woods, wasn't it? And William Hague was probably
William Hague was the previous MP.
Yeah, but he was proper Yorkshire, wasn't he? And Rishi Sunak's got nothing to do with Yorkshire. I mean,
no.
He goes
I don't know that necessarily matters in a place like Richmond.
Swimming pool.
In all honesty.
Okay.
I mean, it's actually quite funny because my local candidate now, who's a local councillor, when he was standing for, when we were choosing who we were going to have as our candidate, and he was saying, and people on the doorstep respond to the local candidate. They like the local candidate, you see. Yeah. And he's from Surrey or Suffolk or one of these places. I mean, he's local. He lives there now. But I was like, you're not allowed to say anything during these things. But if I was allowed to pipe up, I would have said, mate, have you heard how you pronounce grass? But it really You know, I don't think people.
I do feel like your local representative should be local. I've always felt that, and although we had
I don't,
Stephen
because you
Twigg
might
for a
have.
while in West Derby, Liverpool, he was a nice bloke. Obviously, he got beaten in the 2005 election in Enfield, so he came up to Liverpool. But at the same time, and it was kind of good to have someone who had a little bit of sway within the Labour Party to be, to be our local MP. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, that the idea of parachuting in a candidate it doesn't.
Well, the thing is, I mean, I have two views. First of all, if you've got a real star, then you want to get them into Parliament. But the second thing I would say, somewhere like Liverpool, you could make that argument because it's a city and it's a Labour city, so you're always going to have a lot of decent candidates.
Yeah.
Whereas there's other places that are winnable that you might not have any. You can end up with the right dickhead, and in your marginals, you need your strongest candidates to win them. You can't, if your local choice, if the best of your local choice is someone who came second in the village idiot contest, then that's no good. So I don't mind at all where they come from. I do mind it if they become your MP and they still live 100 miles away. I don't mind next door, because as long as they see that their workplace is there. But if it's like
one of our MEPs up here, who was standing for the Brexit Party in the 2019 elections, he lived in France.
We had one here.
He lived in
because they had their addresses on the ballot.
Yep.
And it was a French address for the Brexit Party.
France. My God. Yeah. What if Nick Clegg formed a coalition government with Gordon Brown? Where would we be now? I don't think they had the numbers.
No, they didn't. Simon. It was not. The thing I'll say for the Lib Dems, they didn't have to form a coalition with anyone. It was not realistic to form with Labour. There was not the numbers. It was not like there was even a 3-party coalition you could have made. It wasn't happening.
Yeah.
It was a Conservative coalition, or saying that the Conservatives could form a minority government. The second would have been the better option, not just in hindsight, I thought at the time, but definitely in hindsight. Yeah. But Craig saying being the village idiot in Norfolk is no bar to being PMC. Liz Truss. Well, of course, there is a phrase normal for Norfolk.
Normal for Norfolk. So. That's what doctors used to write on the on the patient forms for the next doctor doing the rounds, so they knew. Funny looking kid, normal for Norfolk, and CTD, which stood for circling the drain. They can't do this anymore because the internet basically told everyone what the initials stood for, so they can't use it. Funny looking kid. Oh my God. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but yeah. Well, we've got the junior doctors on strike still at the moment, haven't we? And we've got tube strikes coming up next week.
Yeah.
Strikes. This is the Tory way.
Yeah. So they're blaming it on Labour.
Oh yeah,
in fact, there's so many. There's even some of the
they're not in power, but it's all their fault.
Yeah, I mean, there's someone from the Telegraph, I think it was, or someone from some of these Tory shows going, "Oh, all of the problems today can be traced back to when Labour were in government." What you mean, when everything worked,
or at least most things worked? Yeah.
When most things worked, at least.
Complaining about there was someone who called up the radio today and was saying about how that this is a continue. I don't think they called up the radio. I think maybe James O'Brien just read it out because it was something stupid that someone put on Twitter. But it was like a proper Tory who said that he weren't going to vote for these Tory lot because they're just a continuation of New Labour.
Yeah,
and it was like, what?
That's the thing. We see these people on the hard left as well. These people that are so narrow in their views, and they see anyone that's different to them as all the same. They don't see that there are different groups in politics across the political spectrum. They just see them and everyone else as all the same. So when you're on the far right, you just see everyone as like communist. I don't think anyone's actually called Sunak a communist, but it's called a socialist by mainstream Tory commentators.
Sunak. It's almost as though they don't know what the word socialism means.
Most people don't know or anything to do with politics. There's people involved in politics cannot tell you what left or right wing is. They have no idea. And it's actually really easy to define, but they have no idea when you actually challenge them.
Yeah. It's always Labour's, Duke Venture says it's always Labour's fault. Only someone has to breathe, and some twat like Owen Jones will shit out of his mouth in the shite-wing media. I mean, they do seem to get more grief off the left than they do off the right in Labour.
Well, the right at the moment are distracted by Reform UK, because for the first time in their entire history, which, you know, it's 200 years old, and then that's just of the Conservative Party, and it goes back beyond then. They are now facing the right-wing vote effectively being split.
Yeah.
Really. They didn't get in 2015, obviously we had the rise of UKIP, but so UKIP got their best ever result and the Conservatives went from minority to majority, so it obviously didn't hurt them. In 2017, UKIP had basically folded already, and the Brexit Party still weren't a thing. 2019, the Brexit Party were a thing, but they stood down in Conservative seats. So the Conservatives still didn't have that. They would have won more seats if they'd have stood down everywhere, but they'd still won their large majority, so they weren't too unhappy. So this coming election, assuming Reform UK do stand candidates against the Tories this time, which, you know, seems likely, at least this time, then for the first time ever, they are facing, you should see some of the Tory commentators whining about vote splitting as well. It's like, welcome to our world, mate. Welcome to our world.
Also,
if only we had PR.
I think it was the Mail, was it, talking about Labour were going to do a secret deal with the Lib Dems, and how disgraceful that was,
they've been doing
anti-democratic
that
was. And it's like, hang on, in the last election, the Tories literally did a deal with the Brexit Party.
Yes.
Where it said, don't field candidates against Tories, just do it against Labour.
Yeah.
Thank you to the 7 Deputy Journey for the coffee. Have a New Year coffee. We're going to have a coffee.
Grimfang's saying there, socialism is an extremely vague word as it is. It's not at all. It's easy. Socialism is state management of the means of production. That's all it is. And the more the state controls the means of production, the more of a socialism system you have. And you go to the extreme end where the state controls all production, and that's communism.
Yeah.
And you can have, you know, whereas most of us are somewhere in between. We want the state to manage something. Like for me, I want it to manage all of the essentials. Everything that people need, and everything else can be left to the private sector because it's not an essential, it's a luxury. So that's fine. Private sector for luxuries, state managing essentials. And if the private sector wants to provide some extra shiny essentials, that's up to them, as long as everyone can get what they need from the state at low cost where profit's not involved. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But that socialism is very, very easy. The reason why people like to confuse socialism or left wing or things like that is because they're really very tribal, and they want to be able to say, right, you're with me, so you can be left wing or socialist because you agree with me on everything, but you're not. So I want you to be something else, right wing, you know, red Tory, whatever it is. And that's why they try, and that's why when you say to them, so what's left wing, what's socialism, they try and make out it's complex because they know full well that you are actually a socialist or a left wing, but they just don't want to say that. But it's not. It's really easy. It's got a simple definition, and that's really all there is to it.
Well, I was just reading that the Rishi Sunak was given an opportunity to refute what James Daly, the MP for Bury North, said last week, where he said that most of the kids who struggle in Bury are the products of crap parents.
Yeah.
Nice. And Rishi Sunak declined to refute that. I think
he's got like, he only just won his seat anyway by like 100 votes.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be out on his ear in the next election.
He's definitely going to be out. There's Tories out there with majorities of there's Tories out there with majorities of 20,000s that are writing their CVs right now. Someone who won by 100 votes is gone.
Yeah,
he's gone.
He is in trouble.
He might as well not even bother staying up for the count.
No. Jesus. Yeah, you're right. 105 votes he won it by. He's in so much trouble. My God. Yeah, he got 46.2% of the vote, and James Fifth of Labour, who was the incumbent, he got 46%. So it's like there was 105 votes in it. So yeah, I think that's going to go back to Labour. especially after saying stuff like that. Oh, it's all the
Yeah.
fault of the crap parents.
Yeah. Because the thing about a statement like
with us.
that is, from his point of view, he'll just be trying to demonize certain people. But Labour can say, he says, if anyone's kid has got any problem at all,
Yeah.
he said it's because you're a crap parent. So
Yeah.
it can apply to anyone.
Yeah.
Absolutely anyone.
Yeah. But you can see why you made it like no one thinks they're crap parents. No one thinks they're poor. No one thinks they're a crap
It's
driver.
a classic distraction thing from the problem. These problems that didn't actually exist 14 years ago. Yeah, it's nothing to do with the government that's been in place for 14 years. It's entirely down to this group of people or this group of people or this other group of people.
Yeah.
Except they don't have a plan for that. You know, they blaming refugees is much more comfortable territory for them, or it used to be, because they can say what they're going to do about that. They never do it, but they can say what they're going to do about it. Except now it's not, because it's richer ground for Reform UK. So this is what I keep saying. By banging on with their unrealistic anti-immigration rhetoric, they're just giving oxygen to Reform UK.
Yeah. Yeah.
But things like crap parents, what are they going to do about it then? So it's like, well, you're the government. What are you going to do about crap parents? Ship them off to Rwanda?
Can we talk about this for a moment with immigration? Because I kind of understand what they're doing it, but I was talking this morning on Morning Brew about how Labour shouldn't be aping the Tories in terms of we need to get immigration down, we need to get, immigration needs to get sorted. They should be making a positive case for immigration. Do you think that's something that just has to wait until after the election?
No, it can't even wait till after the election. It can't even be done after the election. You can't start so out of kilter with lots of people. Not everyone is anti-immigration in this country, but if you phrase it as, should we at least manage immigration, massive majority say yes. That's why the Tories tried to use this phrase, uncontrolled immigration. Oh yeah, it's uncontrolled immigration under Labour. It's like, okay, so how come the rate of immigration increased under the Conservatives then? Like, we have a higher proportion of the population foreign-born now than we did when Labour in power. But that's so you can try, but you cannot you can't start off from a position completely out of kilter with the public. You have to be on the side of the public. You can nudge them.
Yeah.
You can nudge them, but I wouldn't expect to see. But the problem is the dial has been shifted so far one way, it will take a long time to nudge it back. But it's certainly Labour's job to nudge attitudes back. But the other thing to point out as well is that, polling shows that people are a lot more positive about immigration anyway these days, ironically, since the Brexit vote.
Yeah.
So people are a lot more positive about it. But at the same time, you can't adopt a position that's very out, because it doesn't matter what public opinion is in a first past the post system. What matters is what your swing voters, your target voters think. And you can't, if you take a position that is out of kilter with voters, you're in for a tough time. And the problem is the Tories at the moment are doing that. That's why their efforts are much harder. Like Labour's are pushing things that are much more in tune with voters, and the Conservatives aren't. But the Conservatives are attacking this Labour policy on the green investment. But people want that.
Okay, that explains why they're doing this in terms of the upcoming election. But once they're in office, wouldn't it be worth them trying to change the public narrative?
Only nudging can only be doing. You can't suddenly take a counter position to the public, because then you're not seen as them. People are very them and us. You have to be on the side of us. But their policies are more realistic. They're not going to pursue, like, the rhetoric is not always helpful, but their policies are. And the rhetoric will change, but it will change subtly, slowly. Because what you cannot do is say to the public, you're wrong.
No, I'm not suggesting that we do that, but you look at attitudes towards homosexuality back in the 1980s. 90% of people thought that there was something wrong with it. Now, 90% of people think there's nothing wrong with it. Like, attitudes can change. I don't think they change
over a long time.
Yeah, but I do think there would be some mileage in the long run of Labour making a positive case for immigration.
They need to nudge it. They need to nudge it.
No one's doing it at the moment. I never see anyone on TV saying we need immigrants, because
the Conservatives are. You're not seeing their latest.
No?
Department for Education struggling to get teachers from abroad.
Right, but I mean, that's not going to be in their manifesto, is it?
No, it's not. No, but nonetheless, the Tories are, saying we need immigrants for. So basically, the Tories have this weird position of saying we need to reduce immigration. It's just that we need more immigration in literally every sector of the economy.
Yeah.
Individually, whereas Labour have not said that there will be a cap on immigration. They can say things like, "Oh yeah, we think it should come down," but that's easy because it's going to come down. It just naturally comes down. What Labour have said sounds like they think it should be reduced, but isn't, because they know that the figures that were published recently were inflated, and they're gonna fold like a souffle really quickly. A bad souffle, obviously. But all souffles are bad.
Duke says, surprised they haven't started whining about Starmer's beer again.
I was thinking of that.
Starmer's beer and Diane Abbott's mojito on the train. It's like, this is what the Tories try and get people vexed over Labour.
But it is also why Labour have to be extra cautious.
Yeah. Andrew's saying my replacement knee will be performed in a private hospital paid by the NHS. Should I feel guilty of facilitating this sneaky Tory privatisation? No, Andrew, it's not your call. And seriously, I know people who are waiting for knee operations, and it's an absolute disgrace. So if you can get it, when Labour left power in 2010, there was hardly anyone waiting more than 16 weeks, to be honest with you, but waiting more than a year, there was hardly anyone. It would have been if things had been cancelled for other reasons. And then the Tories have got in, and now literally over 1 million people are waiting over a year for an operation. And it's all the doctors' fault, apparently, according to the right-wing press.
Yeah.
The front cover of the Express today. Bloody doctors,
wanting to get paid.
Wanting to be paid a reasonable amount.
Well, they're not even asking for a reasonable amount. They're just asking that they have the same rate of pay they had in 2008. And even then, they're not saying in one go, we just want a commitment over time. But that's like, but why should they only get paid the same as they were in 2008, which at the moment it's like 35% less than that? Or it might, no, actually, in the case of junior doctors, it might be 19% less. But why, surely we should be expecting that they would have got paid more since then.
Well,
but they haven't, because the economy's shrunk.
Well, yeah.
And the Tories are arseholes.
They are literally the worst. So
I was trying to say to someone, like, so on the right wing, so you're all about like competition. We're not offering competitive wages. Like our neighbours offer better wages for doctors. And he said, which neighbours? I said, look, find a map, find the UK on it. You can probably do that. Find any country that neighbours us. They all pay more for their doctors.
Yeah.
And then you've got this latest one after that idiot, whichever the Victoria was. I'm getting them mixed up. I shouldn't do that again. The health secretary talking about. So I'm now seeing loads of these idiots on social media go, oh, they're not even doctors. They're not even qualified. Yes, they are. And it wouldn't matter anyway. If you want their skills, you'll pay for them. But of course, they're qualified doctors.
Yeah. Apparently, Carol Vorderman is the #1 bully in the country who demonizes people. That's what Sean Bailey's been saying. The #1 bully in the country, because she's been going after the Tories and the VIP lane.
Oh, you poor snowflakes.
And he's not apologized to her for what he said.
No, well, he won't do. He won't. What? There's absolutely he doesn't. He's not beholden to the public. He has never won elections. I mean, he stood for Mayor of London and lost. His reward for being an electoral failure and all-round dickhead was to be put in the House of Lords, where it's a position for life. There are very few ways to get yourself kicked out of the House of Lords, and pissing off the public is not one of them. So, it's there's absolutely no reason, unless his views somehow hurt his income, which isn't the case. So there's no reason for him to apologise. He doesn't feel the need to apologise. His money and his position are not based on public opinion. So there we go.
But more of a reason for Labour to get rid of the House of Lords.
Well, yes. Yeah.
So do you think they're going to do that, or is that going to be a second term thing?
It's certainly not going to be a first term thing. They basically said so. I do worry that it's one of these things that Starmer wants, and it will be left on the impale. You always get things that they want to do, but there's so many things they want to do, and some just get left because it's never a priority. That's my worry. There's so much opposition within Labour to it. Bizarrely. It was very much a Keir Starmer thing. It's actually ironic. People will be attacking Keir Starmer for going back on it when he's the one who really wants it. Yeah. But there's so few others in Labour, that particularly in the House of Lords, it's Labour peers who are understandably moaning the most. Well, but there's also others as well.
It's cushy, isn't it? It's a cushy little number.
Yeah. Well, basically, they say that, and it must be because people treat it as it is. But I can never get it myself. I don't understand it. To me, it sounds like a ball ache.
Oh, people say it's dull.
Because you've got to actually turn up to get any money.
And you get 200 quid.
Yeah,
God, if I got 200 quid every time I went to London, that would just about pay for the train fare.
Well, I mean, yeah. So for some of these people, I just think it's just a ball ache. You've got to actually be. You don't have to be in the debating chamber. You've still got to be there. You've got to actually turn up. I mean, it just seems like a hassle to me.
Well, one of the things that was discussed this week, or this morning actually, by Keir Starmer was this. Let's come back sort of onto the agenda, which has been assisted dying, euthanasia. Yeah. Obviously, this is because of Esther Ranson, who is terminally ill, and she wants the right to take her own life in the manner that is, most appropriate for her, which I think no one can argue with. Now, what Starmer suggested is that this comes in on a free vote on a Friday private members bill. So, I mean, there's quite a few things that Labour could bring in on a private members bill that will probably get support across the House. That's the handful of Tories that are left.
No, there are Conservatives that have said they actually think, because there was a private members bill brought for it a few years ago and it didn't succeed. But they're actually, I think David Davis might have said, I think a few others have said as well, that actually if someone brought that today, it probably would succeed, that there are enough Conservatives as well. So it would. I think everyone takes the view that it would enjoy cross-party support. Starmer doesn't want to adopt it as party policy because it's divisive. He said so, but he says he has no issue with it being brought as a private members bill and being given it a free vote because he says it shouldn't be a matter of party policy.
I think he would support it as well because he would like the law to be cleaned up.
Well, he may privately support it. I strongly suspect he won't publicly support it because then that is party policy. As party leader, you have to be a bit careful. Anything you say is suddenly party policy.
Well, he said that as a director of public prosecutions, there were incidents where things like this came up, and the law at the moment's a mess, and you have to kind of like get around the law rather than actually.
Yeah, I mean, more specifically, as director of public prosecutions, on at least one occasion, he had a case brought to him, and he said, "I'm not going to prosecute. That's not in the public interest."
Yeah. And I think that's got to be changed. Come on, I mean, even to protect
it sounds like
people.
It will be because I'm not. Given that this has now been made a thing, I'm not actually seeing. There will be some opposition, of course, but I'm not seeing any political opposition at all.
Yeah.
So Starmer's basically given the green light at some point next Parliament for someone to bring it, as you say, on a Friday afternoon, private members bill, and that'll be that.
David Faulkner, thank you very much for the super chat, mate. I know a person who insists the USA isn't a democracy because it's a republic. Explain that the opposite of a republic is monarchy, but they weren't convinced.
Okay. So, well, I mean, the US need to publish a big book of political terms, then, don't I?
Well, the thing is, though, democracy is a bit of a catch-all term, and you can have different flavors of democracy. You can have a presidential system, a constitutional monarchy. You can have a referendum-led system like they have in Switzerland. But, I mean, some things work better than others in different countries. So there's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to democracy. I think that, although I'm not a massive fan of the monarchy, I think a constitutional monarchy works all right in this country. It allows enough checks and balances that even when Boris Johnson was our prime minister, he couldn't do whatever he liked. All he could do is have parties in his house, like a little teenager. He couldn't actually tell the army to do crazy stuff or... and he was gotten rid of without a general election, which you can't have in America. if Trump gets in
well, he can be
next year,
impeached, but the
it's political though, isn't it?
it's then political.
It's a political process.
Yeah.
So you'll have all the Republicans voting to keep him
Yes,
in,
yeah,
and then say, "Oh, this has already been seen. We've already had a trial on this." Like, oh, piss off! You can't have a trial where like half the jury literally work for the person on trial. That makes no sense. But yeah, I don't like the presidential system of democracy. I don't think it works. I think it paves the way to strongman dictatorships, which we've seen all over the world.
I think there's a number of problems with it. I mean, the other problem with it is people then see the president as the boss of everything, which then allows your legislature, as happens in America, to completely take the piss under the radar.
Yeah. And we complain when people like Zach Goldsmith or David Cameron or David Frost are put into the cabinet, because we're like, hang on, they're not elected. They're not elected MPs. What are they doing in the executive? What are they doing making decisions? Don't forget, none of the people around a US president are elected.
No.
All the Secretary of State and all that lot, they're all appointed by the president.
Usually.
Yeah, they're mates of the president. No one votes for them, and no one can vote them out except for the president. I mean, they're vetted by Congress, aren't they? But at the end of the day, it's the president's decision.
And again, that Congress vetting usually, although it can sometimes be partisan as well. But certainly, if the president's party is in the ascendancy in the legislature, there is going to be no problems at all.
Yeah. Nick and Diff are saying, you're joking. Charlie sits there and reads whatever he's told to. That's not a check or a balance on anything. It's not.
It's the fact that Boris Johnson cannot authorize things directly.
Yeah.
So, for example, people say, well, what if Rishi Sunak just decided not to have an election? It'll just happen. The King will automatically dissolve Parliament. On December the 12th this year, it will just be announced there's going to be an election, and the King will start the process of dissolving Parliament, because it's got nothing to do with the government, nothing to do with Parliament. We're used to the government calling elections because they call them before they have to, but there's an automatic process in place to start the next election. If we were just always in the habit of not like in America, just having them happen on predictable dates, then the government does nothing, has no role in it.
Yeah. In the chat, our friend in Germany, Jupp, is saying, we in Germany have a president as well, Graham. Yes, Frank Walter Steinmeier. I just had to look that up. But his role is very similar to your monarch's, but he has the power of the word, as we say, and decides what to say in speeches. And that's fair enough. And to be honest with you, it was always one of my favourite sort of quiz questions, is who is the president of Germany? Because invariably people would say Angela Merkel, and it'd be like, no, actually, no. Who's the president of India, for instance? People say, oh, it's Modi. It's not. They're the prime minister or the chancellor. They're presidents who have no real political power, and they go around being representatives of the state, effectively. They'll turn up to sporting events. They'll go and open supermarkets and things like that. Stuff that our monarchs do in this country without all the pomp and circumstance, which is good. Which I much prefer that system. So when I bash presidential systems, I should say politically powerful,
where they're also the head of government, effectively.
Yes,
or head, like in France, it's
head of state different. Or head of government, not both.
Well, yeah, I mean, in France, it's a bit different because technically Macron, there is another prime minister as well, but Macron chooses the prime minister.
That's a stupid system.
That is a weird system in France. Yeah. But again,
it'd be quite worrying.
Different systems can work for different people, different culture. So it has to sort of work for the culture you have.
Yeah. So when's the next elections in France? Is that this year?
No,
it's not. 2022. So it's going to be 2027, is it? The next one?
Because they do 4 or 5 year cycles. I've forgotten.
The worry is, yes, 2027. It's a 5-year cycle. The worry is that Marine Le Pen of the Fascist Party or the National Front.
Well, that's always the worry. That's the perpetual worry that someone called Le Pen will win.
Yeah.
And that's always what has to ultimately, the French public have to, at least theirs is fairly binary. So you just need a majority to go, no. We'll even have a useless tosser than that.
Yeah. And Macron will be ineligible to run in that election, which is probably a good thing.
Possibly,
he probably would
depends
win it.
who follows. But, again, whoever gets through to, I mean, it's good and it's bad. It means that you always have this worry that she could end up becoming the president, but you always, from the other candidate's point of view, it's almost like they've sealed the deal, as long as the French public maintains some sense.
Yeah. It's still, I mean, having someone that idiotic and dangerous. I mean, she's not a stupid person. I shouldn't say idiotic. Someone that dangerous, so close to us, and a member of NATO, a member who's quite close to Putin, a member of nuclear power, a member with a seat on the UN Security Council, a permanent seat. There's a lot of things in there, isn't it? It's a bit, it's a one country that you wouldn't want to see go down that route, along with ours and America. But I think America's kind of a bit of a fait accompli with going down the route of fascism, when Donald Trump can actually put out a word cloud on Boxing Day saying, not that they have Boxing Day in America, but on the 26th of December, saying dictatorship and revenge as the biggest words in the word cloud, and still people still support him.
But again, hopefully it's the same galvanizing effect as you do have in France. And people who, I mean, I think Biden's done all right, but even people who think, oh, he's not done as well as I thought, will still get out and go, but not Trump, thank you.
I don't know. I'm seriously worried about. Well, I mean, one of the mad things about like the Trump campaign is like it goes on and on about how old Biden is, and obviously, Biden is pretty old.
Yeah.
But Trump's only a couple of years younger than him. If Trump gets in, he's going to be older than Biden is now by the end of his term.
Basically, yeah. Yes.
And he's already losing his way when he's doing his speeches, his rambling speeches where he just goes off on mad little tangents. Not that we have a problem with that on our channel necessarily, but when they don't go anywhere, he's full of non sequiturs. They keep saying the wrong words, and you can sort of tell when he's reading off a script and when he's just making it up as he goes along.
Brian just said sorry, I was just saying, Brian just said something interesting. Says Marine Le Pen's daughter is the one you need to keep your eye on. Now, I don't follow this closely enough. If the suggestion is that at some point Marine Le Pen steps down and her daughter takes over, doesn't that mean that the National Front becomes a monarchy?
Yes.
So the French, someone should point that out.
It already is.
Well, but if you have a situation where you've got the leader of this party, and then they step down and their daughter steps up, and then if she steps down, her daughter steps up. That's the monarchy.
Yeah.
The French have a bit of a problem with monarchies, as I seem to recall.
Nah, mate, they love them. They got rid of it, and then they brought it back with Napoleon. After a few years. Very briefly. Did they keep on having revolutions? And yet nothing ever changes.
Whereas we did the opposite. We technically had, it was called a protectorship. It was basically like, it was a weird situation with Cromwell.
Did Cromwell's son take over from Cromwell when he died for like a week?
It wasn't very long before they brought Charles II back.
Let's have a monarchy. If we're gonna have a monarchy, let's have a monarchy. I always felt that way about like in Cuba, where it was it's supposed to be this communist
family Castro
thing. Yeah, and it was Castro, and then who replaced Castro? His brother. It was like, hang on,
yeah, it's Raoul, isn't it?
Yeah. Just having a look at some of the. I don't know if I can read some of these out. Yoni says, I don't really understand why even his ardent acolytes bear to listen to him rambling. Where's the entertainment value? Yoni, people find him funny. I know it's weird. We're talking about Trump. People find him hilarious. They like to sit there and he says the things that in very, very simple language, like the vocabulary that he uses is like year 5 in school.
That's what you're advised to use on social media. Like, the advice is to do that on your YouTube thumbnails and stuff like that, which I sometimes just ignore because I do my own thing. But you're supposed to. It works. And that is part of his appeal. Words. He used incredibly simple language, which people respond to.
Do you know why I try to use short words on my thumbnails? Because otherwise, you have to make the text too small to fit it in. If you use a short word, you can make it really big.
Yeah.
But I don't think when we're talking, we necessarily talk down to anyone. I hope we don't. We don't try to anyway. Derek is saying Trump is 3 years younger than Biden. And he hasn't made sense for an earlier decade. I don't think he's ever made sense.
No.
They tried to warn us in Back to the Future too, because Biff, the character of Biff was very much based on Donald Trump, even in the 80s. Trump, I love the poorly educated. Yeah, indeed. But he and Johnson and Le Pen and Modi, Bolsonaro, these people around the world, they make dickheads feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
That's what they're very good at. And the left can learn a little bit from that, because the left have a tendency to make people feel bad about themselves, or at least feel guilty about, driving somewhere or going on holiday on a plane or making a cup of tea. Think about the environmental impact of that tea that you're making. Not that Phil drinks tea, but I kind of, we kind of need more of that positive campaigning. And just the last thing to talk about before we call it a day, because we have been yakking now for just over an hour. The name of the term that Keir Starmer has used to talk about his new form of politics is Project Hope. You'll never guess what the name of my website was when I was fighting against Brexit.
Yeah, I've just seen something come up that won't be helpful here. This is in the Financial Times, and it's got a little chart, and it's plotted. This is for books, so this only applies to people who read books, I suppose. But it's plotted since 1600, the number of, like, in terms of how much of certain types of books people have bought, and it's categorized them as either looking at the progress in the future, hope, and caution, worry, and risk. And what it's found is, and this isn't a very recent thing, this is like over decades, there's been a significant downturn in people being interested in progress and future stuff, and then massive upturn in those presenting like dystopian futures, I suppose, caution, worry, and risk. Although the progress and future stuff is still ahead. And this was analysing English, French, and German books. Words per million related to the themes of progress versus caution in English, French, and German books.
Well, there you go. But that's what we need to be pushing, progress. I mean, honestly, in the 90s, I felt very optimistic about the future, especially when Labour got in 97. But just with the internet and the opening up of the world, the fall of the Iron Curtain earlier in the decade, it just like the whole decade felt like we were making progress, and we assumed that progress would continue. And then it all just kind of stopped on September 11, 2001.
The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. And we weren't very vigilant.
Yeah. Anyway, in answer to my own question, my campaign was called projecthope.eu. I still own the website, actually. Go to projecthope.eu. Lots of memes on there. But yeah, I think that's a good line. Not just because I thought of it first, but as a counter to Project Fear.
Yeah, well, that's what the Tories are actually repeating Remain's mistake at the moment. It was noted by analysts afterwards that the Remain groups were focusing on all the bad things that would happen when we left the EU, but they didn't focus on the good things that happened because we are in the EU.
Yeah.
Whereas the Tories are doing that now. They're making the same mistake. They're trying to say, oh, with Labour, this will be bad and this will be bad and this will be a disaster. And
it's already bad.
Okay, so I know, but that doesn't matter. They're just trying to say it'll be really bad with Labour. But then you think, so where's your message of hope with the Conservatives campaign? Yeah. Where is it? They're not doing it. So they're basically making the same mistake that the Remain groups made in 2016. Yeah. Which is they're not giving people a reason to vote. Their reason to vote for them is basically because, do you think this is bad? Oh, it can get a lot worse yet. that is their reason for you to vote for them.
Well, that's like the Labour slogan not slogan, but the Labour campaign in 2019 was like, we were awful last time we were in office. We were dreadful. Yeah. We were the worst party you could possibly imagine. Iraq. Remember Iraq? Oh my God, but we're going to be better this time.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I mean, that's what they did under Miliband as well.
Didn't work.
It's like as soon as they lost in 2010, they had to feel Instead of just saying we failed to engage with you as we once did, we were too up our own arses. They could have done that without saying, "Oh yeah, we were terrible," because they weren't. They needed to actually say, because the Conservatives won't. The Conservatives, well, actually, no, they will. Actually, no, they are actually going to do that. They're gonna completely attack everything they've done. Now that I think about it, because they're going to tear themselves to pieces for a few years. But when they come back, then they'll be saying, "Actually, no, we did good things," and then they'll be asked what. I didn't think you'd ask me a follow-up question. Whereas Labour can actually say things. Labour can say, well, by the time the Conservatives come back, they may be having to work out how they say, yeah, we should probably join the single market now.
You told us it was going to be wonderful. Anyway, right, we better leave it at that. Otherwise, we'll be yakking on all afternoon. You can join me again tonight at 9 o'clock for the Labour Social. Phil, are you going to be joining us tonight, or have you got better things to do?
Possibly not. I'm not sure yet.
Okay, well, we'll see. We'll see. It's always a bit of a... It's like chat roulette. If anyone remembers that. Oh my god, with less anyway, so thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for the super chats and the banter in the chat. Thank you very much to Phil Morehouse for joining us from his channel, Different Bias. If you want to follow him, please do. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.